Get started. I am Dr. Sharon, and this is Write the Book Now interview and podcast show. And I have a wonderful, wonderful guest with me this evening. He is Cortland Jones. He's an educator. He's an author. He is a CEO of a nonprofit organization. And I tell you, he is a phenomenal person. And I would love for you to welcome Mr. Cortland Jones. Cortland, welcome to Write the Book Now.
Hey, Dr. Sharon, how are you? Facebook Live, how's everything going? Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Cortland, you have a new book that's coming out in just a couple of weeks. Tell us all about it.
Wow, Apples of Grace, 31 Days of Inspiration for the Educator. It's really an opportunity for me to share with those that are in the profession of education. It's my way of encouraging them. I put together experiences that I've had through my 26 years of teaching as an educator. I wanted educators to be able to be inspired. I wanted them to be empowered. I wanted them to feel uplifted, because the reality is, with the things that go on in the course of a day, in the course of a school year, I wanted them to be able to have their hands on information that can keep them fueled, that can keep them motivated. And it deals with things related to what's going on in the classroom, how they can keep themselves encouraged, as well as how they can continue to build on their professional practice, basically so they can influence their students to be more cooperative and work together with them. I call it turning classroom adversaries into allies.
I love that. And you start very early in the book talking about passion. What is passion? And we know as educators, passion is everything. You have to be passionate about the work that you do. Talk a little bit about the creation of passion, that your chapter, Passion.
Yeah, so based on what you brought up, one day I was actually at another meeting. It was unrelated to education, and someone had spoke to me. They asked a specific question. The question was, what do you think are the key essential elements that help a teacher be successful? And I basically said to them, they need to be passionate, they need to be compassionate, and they need to have knowledge about what it is that they're doing as an educator. So when I think about that passion, I just went through a period of teacher burnout I felt for myself. And it was very difficult. The internal frustrations that I was experiencing, as well as the external things that you don't necessarily have any control over, whether it has something to do with the students or the reality of what's going on in the school community. But being able to make sure you continue to cultivate and nurture that joy that you have, that love that you have as an educator as it relates to teaching and working with the students.
So let's talk a little bit about the title, Apples of Grace. I love that title. How did that come about?
So when I was going through how I was going to put the book together, I really thought about what we give to teachers, that Apples of Grace. On the book cover, there's a hand handing a teacher an apple. So we always associate the giving of the apple to the teacher as a way to show appreciation to them or acknowledgement of their role as the educator. And so Apples of Grace, I thought, was fitting. Grace is something that I always have felt has helped me be successful in the classroom. And so putting the two together, Apples of Grace, I wanted to be able to share words of encouragement, words of empowerment with my colleagues, so we all could feel like we're being motivated and encouraged in our daily walk as professionals. So Apples of Grace really is just putting together my homage to teachers, as well as my homage to my faith in Jesus Christ. As a follower of Christ, it's important to me that I be able to share that knowledge, share that information with others who's receptive to it. And so that's where Apples of Grace comes from.
I love that. First of all, I love to know the meaning behind things. So that sums it up very nicely and makes it a connection to it. So I like that. You also talk about the perfect classroom, and I want to talk about that for a minute, because so many times, especially our novice teachers that are coming, and we know right here in our local area, specifically in our school district, we just brought on close to 1,000 new teachers. And so many of them are trying to have that perfect classroom. Talk about the perfect classroom.
Wow. So that's near and dear to my heart, sincerely, because I've done 13 years of classroom management through cooperative discipline for Prince George's County Public Schools. And in the time I've been doing it, I began to really reflect, as you're talking about, on what is the ideal classroom. And usually when we think about the ideal classroom or the perfect classroom, we're thinking about an environment where kids don't misbehave, where we have all the materials that we need, and everything goes off basically without a hitch. But over time, I began to realize that that type of thinking is part of what creates that burnout, because that is not the real classroom. That is not the way things are. And so if I can begin to look at the ideal classroom as an environment where even if kids misbehave, they're willing to accept the consequences of their actions, they're willing to self-manage after being corrected. I may not have all the necessary materials that I need in order to teach the kids, but I'm going to be innovative in using what I have to get the most out of both myself and the kids in that particular environment. And, trying to maintain on a consistent basis both the positive attitude as well as inviting that collaboration and cooperation with the kids. To me, that type of environment is achievable, even if there is misconduct or limitations that I don't necessarily have any control over. So for me, the perfect classroom has to do more with how well am I able to work that cooperation in with the students.
So, Cortland, you are undoubtedly a follower of Christ. Everything that you do is really rooted and grounded in the Word. And that's very evident in the work that you do. How do you merge that, knowing that in the public school setting that, we are not able to freely do that? And a lot of times, just by the way that we can exemplify those things. So talk a little bit about how you are able to share the message without sharing the message.
It's funny you mention that, because when I first became a Christian, it was within the first year I became a teacher in Prince George's County Public Schools. I started my career in October 1992, and by spring of 1993, I surrendered my life to Christ. I actually have a former student who came by to visit me many years later, and she thanked me and commended me for how I modeled Christ to her as a classroom teacher. But it was just my first year as a teacher and my first year in Christ. So I was really taken aback that she kind of saw Christ in who I was, even though at the time I wasn't necessarily looking to project him or emphasize him and how I was going to be a Christian in the classroom. However, over time, I started using the Proverbs without writing the actual proverb on the board and the verse. I would rewrite them in a way that was still connected to the meaning, as a way, I called it a thought for the day. And I would point out, reference it based on behavior, that kind of thing. Since I've come back to the classroom now, 10 years, I've been back in the classroom for about 10 years now. My goal has been more to model the behavior of Christ, the attitude and the perspective that allows me to make sure that I'm treating the kids in a way that emphasizes love. And by doing that, it's able to have that type of impact where the students are more willing to cooperate with me. It's not always easy. And one testimony that I think is true to what I'm communicating at the moment, I remember when I was at Nicholas Orme Middle School, and I was really having a tough time because in modeling the person of Jesus Christ, you take on a lot of mistreatment, being patient to figure out how you can actually influence uncooperative people to work with you. And there was another adult in the room who was monitoring one particular student. And she actually came to me one day and she said, I have been watching you all this time and I actually thought you were crazy. I didn't think anything you were doing was going to work. But after watching you for a while, I began to realize the stuff that you're doing with the kids, I can actually use on some of the adults that I'm dealing with here in the building. And when she shared that with me, I was actually very frustrated with what was going on in the classroom. So her acknowledgement really gave me the courage and the motivation to keep going. And that is what I would say now I'm more focused on, is modeling Christ's person. So in doing that, I can win more cooperation from my students.
I love that. And you also talk about a culture for learning. And as a former school administrator, we know that in our buildings, that's one of the major things that we strive for, is a culture for learning throughout the building. And also teachers within their individual classrooms are also striving for that same culture for learning, teaching and learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you see in today's society, we have a lot going on in today's society in the schools.
Right.
And sometimes it's a true challenge to make sure that we can provide and sustain a culture that's conducive for learning. Talk a little bit about that from your perspective.
So I really, in that question that you asked, I love it because I really just went through that since this school year started. My second period class on B days, it's an 8th grade group, and they were challenging. There's no question. The behaviors that they brought into the room, I really had to bear with that and be patient. So I had to call a lot of parents right up front. My goal this year was not to delay in dealing with misconduct, because I have always emphasized in teaching, it's important to me that the students demonstrate self-efficacy or the ability to manage themselves, which is a challenge because some kids, you're asking them to do something they don't necessarily want to do on their own. But in that process of calling the parents, being patient with them, even though I was being met with a lot of opposition, being able to be consistent and still remaining pleasant. I would greet them at the door. When it was time to leave, I would tell everybody to have a good day. And then finally, there was a breakthrough. I finally identified the small number of kids who weren't willing to just choose to be cooperative. And by getting to their parents early, they were willing to now self-manage. And now, 4 weeks into the school year, I had 3 straight days where they were willing to listen. They would stop talking when they needed to stop talking. And then we were able to get into a group discussion and dialogue where they were able to demonstrate listening skills as well as critical thinking from conversation I was having with them. And even other adults in the building, when I told them the type of questions we were discussing, they were really impressed with how the kids responded to that. So the culture of learning to me has to do with teaching the kids to take ownership of their behavior, while I'm also modeling the type of behavior that would influence and inspire them to want to cooperate.
It really almost sounds like it's going into your day 28, making allies out of adversaries. I love that chapter simply because it's almost like taking the bad and turning it around for good. And that's what you have to do, and not just in the classroom, but in life.
Yes.
That's what we have to meet those challenges head on and find the lesson in it so that we can turn it around for our good. So talk about that.
So what comes to my mind, even as you're sharing that, one of the particular students in that class, she was talking loud first day. I'm being patient. I call her out into the hallway instead of trying to address her in front of the class. And I'm basically calmly, quietly, because when I get angry, I start talking softer. And so I'm right with her. And I just say, I really need you to work with me and cooperate. And she listens, but as she walks past me to go back into the classroom, she says, "You're going to hate me." So in my mind, I'm thinking, why would you say that to an adult, to a teacher? So when I came back into the room, I just said to the class calmly, I don't know why a student would say something like that without pointing her out. And I never had a problem out of her again. And then I sent a note home to her dad eventually. She came back within other day or two. And she said, Mr. Jones, whenever I get the opportunity, can I help pass out or collect papers? So the same girl who said to me on the first day that I was going to hate her, all of a sudden now wanted to help me out in the classroom. So I make it a point every time I see her to let her know I might need you to help me today. Or today when I saw her in the hallway, I actually greeted her at her locker. So really being, I would say, mindful to connect with the kids so they can see, there's no need to be at war here. Let's figure out how we can work together and really just cooperate so we can enjoy the class time.
Absolutely. And and I always, whenever I talk to my educators, my edupreneurs, educators who are also entrepreneurs, I applaud you, because that's one of the things that I advocate for, because we are so multi-skilled, we are so multi-talented, that I just feel like if you have a dream or a passion, go for it. That's outside of those four walls of those schools in those school districts. So I do want to applaud you, because you are taking a lot on. Now, with that being said, how do you do it?
That's why I'm laughing.
Author of now 2 books, and you also are on the entrepreneur side. So talk a little bit about that balance and how you juggle it all.
So it's funny. That's why I started laughing, because when the momentum really started after publishing the book to start my own business from that, I hit the ground running. I was trying to do everything, and I could hear the wisdom of God saying, you need to slow down. You're not going to be able to get it all done tomorrow. You need to pace yourself, is what I learned. I can't neglect my role and my responsibility as an educator, because I am still in the classroom. And then at the same time, I got to be willing to commit time to my new business outside of my profession. So the class that I teach now called Writing Enrichment, I'm working with the kids on managing their time, setting goals, creating a vision board. So actually being able to work with the kids is keeping me accountable consistently. If I'm teaching them these strategies, I'm doing my self-assessment to look at, am I managing my time? I got to go home and do grades today. I can't do anything related to my business because I got to make sure these grades are submitted. I got to make sure I make time for my lesson plans. And at this point, you know what? I took care of everything I needed to do for work. So now I got to make sure I'm doing things related to my business. So I've actually got a planner at work. I got a planner at home. I use the Google Calendar. I try to make sure that I'm being mindful and conscious of writing things down and putting things on schedule so I can use that time wisely and how I'm investing time, both in my profession as an educator as well as my business.
I love that. And we've been talking about your newest book, but I also wanted you to share at least the title of your first book and just some information of your first book as well.
Sure, and I appreciate that. So Out of the Darkness, A Journey into the Marvelous Light, it's my personal testimony of my understanding of salvation through faith in Jesus Christ. I am a member of Reed Temple AME Church. I've been a member since 1993. And in the time I grew up in my faith through salvation in Jesus Christ, I had a growing desire to want to help others grow in that faith relationship. As I was growing, I started spending a lot of time reading devotionals like Our Daily Bread. And then as I began to discover this real joy and sincere passion for writing and sharing through writing, then there was the desire to write the book. So the book is the opportunity to explain on another level what salvation means for those who might be inquiring and having a heart of sincerity and seeking to understand and know more about what salvation means or the relationship with Jesus Christ. But also, at the time I was writing, I was going through a separation and divorce. So the book is also for those who are in a dark, difficult place, because I wrote the book the entire time I was going through that journey. It took 9 years to write. And in that time, God really ministered to me. And so in chapter 8, it talks about the elevated, expanded, exponential lifestyle you can experience walking by faith. So this really is an opportunity to understand how as you continue to work on that relationship with God, no matter what's going on in your life, God will elevate you. He will expand your influence and your ability to impact the world around you. And then you will experience the exponential blessing that comes from that personal, intimate relationship with him, whether it be financially, like you're talking about as an entrepreneur. God will open doors. And I've seen, since that book has been published, there have been so many doors open to me. So I'm really just trying at this point to let God use me in whatever way he has blessed me as far as the gifts and abilities that he's given me. And now I'm actually helping youth write their own books as well as other adults. I have students who are working with me to publish children's books. So I'm grateful to just look at how, even though my business is growing, God is also helping me to still take care of my profession as an educator and marry the two, so I can still do everything I love to do.
I love it. And guys, we have been talking to Cortland Jones. He is the author of Apples of Grace, 31 Days of Inspiration for the Educator, that will be out in just a couple of weeks. And so you want to connect with him, and I'm going to ask Mr. Jones to please share all of your information so the viewers can connect with you and know exactly when your book will be available.
Sure. So our website is www.cortlandjones.com. I can be reached by email at info@cortlandjones.com. And I'm on Instagram at Cortland Jones. I'm on Facebook, Cortland Jones, and I'm on Twitter at the Cortland J. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So there are many different ways that you can connect with me on social media.
Awesome. This has been such a delight. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I cannot wait until the book is available.
Well, I'm excited too. I was just talking with my publisher, J Media Publishing. I'm excited to be working with them. This is a new venture for me to be joining with them. And she was emailing me to let me know how soon the books were going to be coming. And as I was writing her back, it's just big smile on my face. So, I'm still enjoying this journey as an author, and I committed myself. I said I'm going to go as far as it takes me. So I'm in it for the long haul.
I love it. I love it. I'll say thank you and much success in everything you lay your hands to do. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody. God bless you. Thank you, Dr. Sharon.
Absolutely. And guys, again, I am Dr. Sharon, and this is Write the Book Now. Always reminding you, if you have a book in you, don't wait. Write the book now.